So I want to know the backstory of what it was like before coming here.
Okay. Oh, now? Are we recording?
You betcha.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I thought we're chatting.
في أحد عمره قال لك إنه لهجتك نجدية؟
يعني لهجتي مو نجدي أصلي صراحة، مو زي الناس يقولون لغة بيضة. يعني أقدر أسوي ورشة عمل أو أقدر أسولف، أقدر أسوي أشياء كثير أتكلم بالعربي، بس it's still not 100%. There's still things I don't understand.
You mentioned Ahmed Shigari, that you're a fan of his. Do you watch some of his stuff?
Yes, I watched every حلقة of خواطر.
This is crazy. I'm not used to this. What was the light bulb moment where you were just so gung-ho on, I gotta go to that country?
I started just telling everybody about how much I loved Saudi and wanted to go there, and everyone thought I was insane.
What came first, the depression or the study of psychology?
People maybe ask you, why do you want to start a podcast, right? And you have to, as I said before, really know what you want to get there. Did you find that to be a struggle for you at all? Or you knew for a long time exactly what you wanted?
No, I knew nothing all of my life. You are judged by how you treat the least among us.
Amen. Amen. And it's rare to find people like that.
It's so easy to be nice to someone who can hook you up.
Yeah.
That's why business lunches are important. Before you go into a deal with someone, see how they speak to the waiter.
I like that. That's a good test.
Yeah. Worst advice you've ever gotten besides moving here?
At an altitude of 37,000 feet, we soar, with a rich legacy of honoring our guests and a unique style that has resonated with the world for 78 years. We carry the name of our country on every journey and across every sky. We are Saudi. We welcome you in our own way. We shape our present and build our future. Saudia, our name and country, our style and approach, striving for excellence in everything we do. This is how we fly.
Okay, the backstory of what it was like before I came here. Yeah, so it was my dream to come to Saudi, and I got a lot of weird reactions to that and confusion. Why? And that's bad. And I felt lonely and isolated in having that dream, and I had to push back a lot. And I even myself at some point started to feel shame, like, why am I like this? Why am I so different? And I sought help for that. But then I realized there must be some reason, and I have to follow my heart and accept it. And once I did, I felt free. And then I started just telling everybody about how much I loved Saudi and wanted to go there. And everyone thought I was insane, but they accepted me, but they really thought there was something wrong with me, to the point that my roommates, as I mentioned, told me they had like an intervention with a notebook, sitting down and saying like, okay, we have some rules, and you're no longer allowed to talk about Saudi Arabia in the house anymore. And I thought that was funny, and I moved out. But yeah, it was really...
I moved out.
I did. Because come on,
find some new friends.
Who says that? You can't talk about something anymore. But I did talk about it excessively, and that it became part of my identity in a way. To everyone that knew me, associated me with Saudi Arabia.
Well, I mean, it is a very bizarre set of circumstances for someone who's never been to a country to obsess so much about it, irrespective of what that country is. The question that I have is, what was it that pulled you in? Did you see something? What was the light bulb moment where you were just so gung-ho on, I gotta go to that country?
I think it was a journey, and it started with Arabic. I love the Arabic language so much. I could not live without Arabic, and I knew I wanted to live in an Arabic-speaking country. And as I explored more into Arabic and knew I loved the Khaliji dialect, and as I met Saudi people and saw how amazing and generous they were, and I felt shared values with them. So I've been asked this question so many times, why Saudi, why? And for the longest time I said, I don't know. And what I think it boils down to is shared values. I wanted to be in a place where I could be myself and have the same values as those around me and share that with people. And I did feel that when I came here. It was such a relief. Like, finally, I felt at home. I felt I could share how, like, I love this, I love that, I love Abdul Abdullah, I mentioned that, but, and have that shared experience with other humans and not just be Heidi's crazy and we don't understand her. So I think that media is very powerful. It's very powerful because if you look at a lot of people that learned English from watching films and watching TV shows, and they kind of want to adopt that culture. They find things in it that they get emotionally attached to and love. And it has a really big impact on people. Like, I have a Saudi friend that went to study in Turkey because she loved Turkish dramas. I don't know if that's the only reason why. She also loves literature. But, it has such an impact. And I think it really did have a big impact on me, those shows.
Soft power.
Yes. And now we're seeing in Saudi the film industry booming, and it's going to impact. You're going to see more people like me, I predict, in the future, who are like, I love Saudi, I love Arabic. Maybe. I think so.
It's good for me.
Why?
I get more potential guests on the show. This platform wasn't built for my people. It was built for the world, for them to see what's happening here.
See what's happening in Saudi.
Yeah.
Great. I'm ready to share. I've been sharing that with everyone as much as I can for the last several years. But yeah, that's great.
I love those stories because it completely shatters the preconceived notions, misconceptions of the country, because you were probably inundated and just spoon-fed or force-fed misinformation, negative information of the region by mainstream media, who I just, for the rest of my life, will always have a bone to pick with. And then when you came here, didn't you feel like you were pranked?
Well, I think that started. My eyes started opening up when I moved to London, and I did a master's degree in London, and I saw how different the media was and how different the mindset of other people, because London's very diverse, and that started opening my eyes a lot. And I really got into activism work, and I became very passionate about it. So that's when I started learning also about Islam, and most of my friends in London were Arab, Muslim, also Turkish, and from many countries, but that opened my eyes a lot. Yeah.
It's more diverse. What's the word? It's multicultural.
It's very multicultural.
Especially because you said you lived in Vegas and your mom was from Georgia. Neither of those regions strike me as multicultural.
Las Vegas is very multicultural.
In what way? The Hispanics?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many countries in South America. There's also my family, my brother, his wife is from the Philippines. My sister, her husband is from Peru. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it is multicultural, but
it's not LA or New York.
Right.
Where you can compare that against London. You go to London, it's all walks of life.
Yeah.
There's probably somebody from every one of the 200 countries on earth living in London. And I would go further to say there's a community.
But, before I went to London even, I was living in Hawaii, and that's when I started studying Arabic, and I found like a little mosque in Hawaii that I went and studied Arabic there with a woman from Jordan.
And if I hit you with the why, is there a concrete answer for that? Why? What intrigued you about the region? I love it. I love that you are intrigued, but I want to know the why. I'm the psychologist here.
I want to know too, Mo. So, I live my life by intuition and following my heart. And there was just something that I felt so strongly towards. I love, of course, like a lot of us, we love to travel. We love to learn about other cultures.
Not everyone.
Yeah, I guess not everyone, but Hawaii is also very multicultural. And I remember just having this feeling that I should go to Hawaii. And when I was there, I had this feeling like it was heaven, and I thought I'm going to stay here forever. But I had this feeling like you're going to be here 3 to 5 years, and then you're going to go to other countries. And I just had that feeling, and I don't know why, but I really, really live my life by that. I still don't know why, but I'm so happy. I'm so in love with Saudi every day. Every day. I just see when I'm driving down the road and I see things, I just feel like, it's so beautiful. I'm so grateful to be here.
Have you explored?
I've been to, of course, a lot of places in the Najdi region, including up to Qasim. I've been to Sharqiya. I've been to Jeddah and Al-Ula, Taif, Mecca, and I am next on my list is Medina and Abha and Jazan.
Any favorites?
I love Taif and Diriyah. I really love, there's something so special about Riyadh. I loved Taif because of the greenery. I love greenery and mountains, and the roses there were so beautiful. Someone told me there, and I don't know if this is true, that Riyadh actually means like a rose in the desert or something. And so I think some people don't see Riyadh as beautiful because it's desert. When you see like the red sands and you see, there's something so beautiful and special about it to me. I don't know why, but you know, something just holds my heart there. But
it fascinates me that it's on an 800-meter hill.
What is?
Riyadh.
I didn't know
Not
that.
a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
Where you are right now in my house.
Uh-huh.
So when I drive into my driveway, the screen on my car tells me the elevation.
Oh, okay.
And it's something, because I love my road trips. I'm a car guy. I peak at whatever elevation I'm at when I'm on a road trip.
Okay.
Especially when my ears pop. So when I'm in Riyadh, and I do drive from time to time, I glance at it and I'd see 800, 850 up to 900 meters. And when I'm driving into my driveway, it's 8 meters.
Interesting.
And 800 meters, Heidi, is the tip of Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is the highest building in the world.
No way.
So Riyadh, the city, is as high as Burj Khalifa, which is 818 meters. Forgive me, 828 meters. Isn't that profound?
I love this attention to detail and numbers.
Fun fact of the day.
I love numbers. So it's interesting.
The city of Riyadh sits at the tip of the height of the Burj Khalifa.
Amazing.
And that's a Google question that you can get the answer to in 2 seconds if you guys are questioning my authenticity or credibility.
I believe you, but maybe I'm just psychoanalyzing you a little bit.
But I get what you mean.
I
get what you mean, that it's because it's such a metropolis in the middle of the desert. There is beauty in how it's just a city that kind of doesn't finish. And it reminds me a bit of Vegas as well, how in the middle of mountains you just have boom, a city that just appeared, out of nowhere.
Yes, but the history is very different. And
No, I mean, I'm the last person to make any comparisons between those two cities. I don't think I've ever asked anyone this question, but I'm going to ask it to you.
Okay.
Why did you want to come on the Mo Show?
Why did I want? So people ask me in general, why did I even start my social media accounts? Because when I first came to Saudi, I was very private and not in social media that much. But I think it goes back to that shared cultural values, right? I really wanted to connect with people, and they thought I was just a random American girl, which I am, but I wanted to be like, hey, I speak your language and I know about, like, I love Abdulmajid Abdullah, right? I love all the things about your culture, and I wanted to share that, and it was really difficult, but when I did share it, people were really amazed. And so I was like, I think social media would be a good way for me to connect to the community. But I thought to myself, what is the purpose? And it made me question, what is my purpose in life, and why, and what do I want to share? Like, if you have a platform, and you said at the beginning why you built this platform. And for me, when I think about my core values and what message I want to share, why I'm talking in social media or in podcasts, I'm a psychologist, and I love Saudi. And I love Saudi because of the values, and I want to tell people how much I love those values and to keep them as we're changing and we're shifting. so rapidly, and as globalization impacts younger generations, that like we need to hold on to the values of the collectivist culture.
And you find that here, collectivist culture.
Much more so than, of course, the United States is an individualistic culture.
That's like a problem that has, I feel, only intensified with time.
Yeah, it's the effect of globalization and social media and media. We were talking about how powerful the effect is psychologically and in an individualistic level and at a society level as well. And there's good people in the world that are trying to promote these sort of core humanistic values. And that's really what I want to do. That's really my message is, and I know as Saudi is changing and developing in such an exciting, great, ambitious way, that they are holding on to traditions and culture. But again, like the collectivist culture values of just like that it's safe here, you can walk out in the street and anyone would help you. That takes individual responsibility to maintain that. And I just really hope to promote healthy societies and values and psychological well-being on a societal level.
Are you always treated with respect?
I don't think anyone can say yes to that question 100% of the time. But as a woman in Saudi, if that's kind of what you're getting at, I've been treated so respectfully here. And people used to say, well, that's because you're a foreigner. But no, I don't believe that. I think that people are just very respectful here because of their core values and beliefs historically.
You say that it's a place that you wanted to come to and live in for the longest time. Having been here for 3 years now, has it met your expectations?
Almost 3 years, 2 years and 9 months. And it's exceeded my expectations. It was much more difficult. It was so much more difficult than I could have ever imagined adjusting. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because if you move to another country, especially alone, it is a challenge. But as I said, I feel so in love with Saudi every day. I feel so grateful to be here. And it's exceeded my expectations in many ways.
How did your family take it before you left and you said you're going to Saudi? I don't think they drove you to the airport, did they?
No, they did not. They did not. They tried to, I think they were just nervous. They were scared and they tried to impose that fear on me, not intentionally.
Out of love.
Yeah, probably.
I don't blame your parents. I blame fear mongering of media.
Well, I don't think all of my family knew, but those that did, yes. But they knew for years, again, like, as I said, I was very passionate about Saudi Arabia and I talked about it all the time. So they were kind of experts on Saudi themselves because I had talked about it so much. Yeah.
And now?
And now they have an even better understanding because I show them pictures. I tell them, they see how grateful I am to be here and how safe I feel. And they see it as a good place. And even, it's funny, sometimes like some of my family members will say, someone came into work today, was saying this negative stuff about Saudi Arabia. And I told them, no, my daughter lives there and she said this, this, and this. And I'm like, wow, I pass that on, like that ripple effect. So that's cool.
But you've been back, you've visited since you've been here.
No, I have not.
You have not?
No. No. I've only been in Saudi and I've traveled close by in the GCC and to Egypt for work, for short trips.
Was it intentional or you just haven't had the time to go back?
Well, it's expensive and time consuming to go back and I get that. I don't have that many people I'm very close with there. So I don't see the point. I feel so safe here. Honestly, even when I go to other countries nearby, I just feel like I want to go back to Saudi. I want to have that safety and security. I mean, really, when I was living in the USA, I lived in a nice area, but I lived alone during the pandemic and I was scared. And I slept with a knife near my bed.
Was this in Vegas?
No, this was in Utah. And when I came to Saudi Arabia, I had this feeling of safety I'd never felt before in my life. That I was just like, wow. And I slept so good at night because because of that safe feeling that I had never experienced. And so I'm not ready to let go of that even for a 2-week trip yet. But I work a lot and I don't have a lot of time to travel. And I want to visit all the cities in Saudi. And then when I do that, then I'll go back to visit, maybe, inshallah.
It's deja vu. You remind me a lot of Paris and her mom, Gail.
Really?
Because they literally, you guys would have a lot to talk about if you guys went out for dinner. There won't be a moment of silence because they said the same damn thing.
Yalla, I need to.
They said we were
Paris,
tricked.
Contact me.
I'll put you in touch with her.
Okay.
They said like it's almost like we were tricked, and then we came here, and it's like, why were we told that it was such a dangerous country, and it's actually the polar opposite of that.
Yeah.
I've never felt safer anywhere else, and I just hate that that's the reputation that we have in the international world. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much anymore because the truth is slowly coming out.
Well, I love that Fox News interview with Mohammed bin Salman, if I can talk about that, when he said, we don't care, like if the world changes their view about us, great, but that's not our goal. And I totally agree with that. Like,
powerful moment that.
Who cares what other people think? And that's an individual life lesson and also as a country lesson. Like, we know Saudi is this beautiful jewel in the world that has so much to offer. And if other people see that, that's great for them. But if they don't see it, like, whatever, it's their loss.
I think what makes it more intriguing now more than anything is that today it's open for tourism, it's open for business.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, it wasn't. For the past 30 years, pre-2018, it wasn't.
Oh, I know, because I was trying to come here since before that, since
really?
2014.
You couldn't
get a
tough. Visa, you couldn't come here.
Yeah, it was very tough. I tried really hard. And the day they announced that visa, I booked immediately. I got my e-visa.
Incredible.
Yeah. I was so excited.
And are you like an official resident now, or how do you stick around for 365 days a year?
I work full-time and I study full-time at King Saud University.
Psychologist, right?
But yes.
Is that what you...
My goal is to get my rukhsa to be psychologist. Yeah.
We'll get into the field of psychology in a second, but were you always known to be a bona fide linguist?
No. I thought I was terrible at languages.
I asked that, Heidi, because it's a very difficult language. When I studied abroad for 12 years, I came back, I realized how much of my Arabic needed improvement. And I come with 10 years, my first 10 years was in Arabic over here. So I had a foundation. You come here with no foundation and you are 50% fluent, I'd say maybe more.
I think more.
Maybe more.
Actually, I should be more humble. I don't know.
No, maybe it is. Maybe I didn't hear you speaking of Arabic.
No. في بعض الموضوع أحس أنا بتلاقى بس في some subjects, no, it depends. Yeah.
So, in short, did you know that you were a linguist?
No, I thought I was terrible at languages. I took French and I can't even count to 10 in French anymore. But I was fluent in sign language, but that's completely different because it's not totally different because it's still using language processing in the brain. But I think for me, I get bored very easily, and when I was younger, I felt I always had to be doing something productive, whether it's reading a book, writing a book, learning a language, learning skill. And I would often take up a new skill and then get bored with it very easily. And I thought to myself, why am I like this? Why can't I kind of stay committed to one thing? And when I started Arabic, maybe because it's so difficult, I felt like I didn't think I would stick with it for long, but I did. And I felt like I finally found like my true love of hobbies, that it was something I just was addicted to and I could not stop studying Arabic. And it's a lifelong pursuit, something I could stay committed to for the rest of my life. And I don't know, I love it so much. I was mentioning to you before how one of my friends participated in a research study about Arabic and how when we use Arabic, we use both sides of our brain or more parts of the brain than other languages. And I think maybe that's partly why I love it so much, because it kind of does something to your brain, I think. So
it's more challenging. So English uses one part of your brain?
I wish I looked that up. I should Google that. But it uses different parts than Arabic. Arabic was shown to use more on both sides. So it's fascinating.
If you were to take a sample size of the word sat, they sat, we sat, he sat, she sat, sat. In Arabic, you can say sat in 8 different ways. Ajlis, jalas, jalasu, najlis, jalasnahum. We sat them down. Jalasu. Anyway, you get the idea. There's one word in English, and we just counted 6 variations of that same word in Arabic.
And it's so beautiful. I love to paint, and so I think of it as a canvas, and you have more colors to paint with. Yeah.
But I can see what you mean by Arabic uses both parts of your brain, because it's a lot more complex. If there is 6 or 7 ways to say one word, as opposed to a language where there's one way to say one word, I can certainly see, and I felt that when I lost a little bit of my Arabic from living abroad, that it took a lot of work. It took a decade of corporate to get to where I am today, which is back to fluency. Like I can have a conversation, with anyone in Saudi, and they won't leave that conversation thinking, why is his Arabic busted? But 10 years ago they would have.
Okay.
So it took a decade of corporate.
I think most languages take about 10 years to be totally fluent. Because right now, for a Najdi or Khaliji dialect, I've been studying it for about 6 years. And I think I probably have 4 years to go to be totally fluent. Like, يعني أقدر أسوي ورشة عمل أو أقدر أسولف أقدر أسوي أشياء كثير أتكلم بالعربي بس it's still not 100%. There's still things I don't understand. And I think the same for sign language. I was an interpreter after several years, but it took me 10 years to feel like I'm almost a native speaker.
في أحد عمره قال لك إنه لهجتك نجدية؟
قولي مرة ثانية.
في أحد عمره اللهجة نجدية. فإذا بدون ما تقولي لي كنت حقول لك إنه العربي تبعك من منطقة الرياض.
طيب بس أحس لهجتي مو نجدي أصلي صراحة، مو زي الناس يقولون لغة بيضة.
لغة بيضة؟
إيه، عشان أنا أسكن في رياض يستخدمون لغة بيضة كثير. بس لهجة نجدي مختلف، يعتمد على منطقة. من
حجازي، من جداوي.
لا بس قصدي في نجد، من رياض إلى صدير، مجمعة، قسيم، مختلف.
صح.
وفي لهجة بدوي، هذا أنا أحاول أتعلم الحين لهجة بدوي، أنا ما أعرف، بس هذا ما أدري بالضبط وش لهجة نجدي، بس الناس يقولون لهجة رياض، لهجتك نجدي ما شاء الله كذا.
طيب أوكي، قولي لي how are you بالعربي؟
كيفك؟ شلونك؟
دقيقة بس كيف حالك أو كيفك هذه غربية. شلونك؟
إيه.
وسطى.
شخبارك؟
نجدية.
شلونك؟
But see the word of شلونك, لونك, which kind of translates to what's your color.
Yeah, I love that.
What's your mood?
Color?
Yeah.
Love it.
We don't use that in the West Coast.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very Riyadh pronounced method of asking how someone is. It's like the ultimate giveaway. If someone was shlonak, you know that person is from.
عشان كذا الناس يقولون لهجتك.
Yeah.
لهجتك ممكن بيضة أو كذا.
Jeddah, it's more like كيفك يا بويا.
Okay. I learned some Jeddah slang. Yeah.
Ever watched Tash Matash?
I have a little bit.
Okay, because that guy Nasser Al-Ghasabi, the legend actor, does the Riyadh so well that you wouldn't think that this guy spent a day out of Riyadh in his life. Wow. And then when he goes Jeddawi, when he's playing a role of a Jeddawi guy, it's like this guy never left Mecca region.
Wow.
Like that's why he is the GOAT in Saudi cinema, I feel.
I wish I would love if I could do that. I've got to watch it because I think when I was learning, I started with Must America because they had English captions, and then I moved to Telfasadash, and the Tash Matash was a little different and more challenging, so I didn't watch as much of it. Yeah. You mentioned Ahmed Shigeri, that you're a fan of his. Do you watch some of his stuff? Yes, I watched every halaqa of Khawatir.
This is crazy. I'm not used to this. I'm used to Arabic content being watched by Arab. This is so refreshing because you get it. You follow it.
I love Khawatir. I've watched every episode multiple times, but he speaks like a mixture of Fusha and Hijazi. So, yeah. No,
but you can tell that he's the accent is Jeddah from like the first couple of seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he's speaking like in a when he's speaking in a more relaxed way, you can tell he's Jiddawi, but when he's presenting, he goes Berda. With the amount, since you say khawatir, with the amount of content that you watched of his, did he introduce you or open your eye a little bit to the religion?
So I had already studied a lot about Islam before, since 2013 when I was living in London, and I had a lot of Muslim friends. That's when I started. But yes, he opened my eyes a lot, just in general, and so many things. It's a really inspirational show. And the biggest inspirational thing from him that influenced my life was from his book, Arbaun, where he lived on an island for 40 days isolated without technology.
It's insane.
He said in that book a story about when he was listening to an imam give a speech that he felt inspired to pray in a mosque every single prayer 5 times a day in a mosque for 1 year. And he set that goal for himself. And he said after he did that, that's when his career took off, when he lived his dream, like you living your dream now, and that's kind of when it happened for him. And at that point, I had been trying to come to Saudi for so long, and I had tried to pray, like during Ramadan especially, and I thought, like, how do Muslims pray 5 times a day? That's impossible. And after I read that story, I felt inspired, and I said, I'm going to try it just to know what it's like and to see if I can even do that. Can I even have that kind of self-discipline? So I was like, God, I'll make you a deal. And I don't endorse trying to make deals with God. That's not how he works usually. But I felt inspired, and I believe in following inspiration. And I said, I will pray 5 times a day. And please, if I do that, just let me go to Saudi. And I did at the end of that 1 year. So I'm really grateful for that, and that I was inspired by him in that way.
SubhanAllah, that's amazing.
SubhanAllah.
Your dream came true. I mean, what you dreamt for or what you asked God for came true a year later.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get, people always try to learn how to get what they want through prayer or through manifesting or meditation or whatever. And I think then people get discouraged of like, why is this not happening for me? Or why? And they try to come up with formulas of do it this way or do it that way. And I really think that it's so complicated, like quantum physics or quantum mechanics. It has to be the right condition in so many ways. And I think about it as like planting seeds. Not every seed's going to grow, but you don't stop planting because 1 or 2 didn't grow. You keep planting because you know that once you reach the right conditions, that doesn't happen every time, but it will eventually. And so that's how I try to live my life, by like having faith. Yeah.
It's a great way to live your life.
Well, I try. Not the best at living life, but I try my best, like all of us.
Yeah, but who is the best at living life? Life is one long, big learning process.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People I know people at 80 years old who are still learning.
Which they should be, and that's amazing. That's what keeps us living till we're 80. So that we keep learning.
Could we talk about the early days in the US where you were a Mormon? Did you ever, if you were okay talking about that?
Sure.
Did you, in your wildest dreams, think that your life would pan out this way?
No, never. I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to leave the United States. I saw a lot of people wanting to travel and live abroad, and I just never wanted to, and I never thought that I would. But my life, things happen. Things impacted me. And when I moved to Hawaii, that was a big impact. And I started to realize that was where my life was headed.
Was being in Hawaii, was that a trigger? That was an eye-opener?
I think I felt empowered because it was the first time I moved far away on my own and was like a real adult for the first time. So I felt empowered that I could. But I think it started before that, when someone close to me had died, and I realized how fragile life is and that I shouldn't be afraid
Sorry to hear that.
to go explore. I mean, it's part of life. Allah yarhamhu. But I just realized life is so fragile, and all of these things I've wanted to do, like go see other countries, that it just, I think that I started to want to when I was studying psychology and anthropology. And then when that happened, I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Just go for what I want to do. And so I went to Hawaii, and yeah, that's where I don't know, I started learning a lot.
You were more curious when you were there? There's power in living alone. You said you moved out.
Well, I lived with roommates there, but yeah, that's when Hawaii is like moving to another country. It's far away, was far away from family, friends, starting over.
It's the middle of nowhere.
Like I started over in a new place by myself.
Gave you new perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you surf?
Of course I did.
Maui or Honolulu?
Honolulu, the island, but yeah.
One of the most beautiful places on earth.
It's like heaven.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Yeah.
How many years were you there for?
Almost 4 years.
Wow. Got to know it pretty well.
Yeah.
So why did you move out?
Because I wanted to go to Saudi Arabia.
So this is what I was trying to get at. You were living in Hawaii, Honolulu, and you said, enough of this, I want to move to Saudi. The time has come.
I started to want to live in the Middle East in general. And as I started to learn more about the Middle East, it narrowed down to wanting to live in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that's when it happened, when it started.
One of my favorite questions is asking people whether they found happiness with age. Have you gotten happier over time?
I definitely think with age comes more experience, right? And in most of my life, I was very happy, especially when I turned 18 and I kind of left home and was independent. I felt very happy for most of my life. I went through periods of adjustment that were tough, like moving to Hawaii. But when I moved to Saudi, it was so difficult because you're facing these challenges and experiences that feel like crises moments. And you think, I have no one to call, to depend on. And then I start to panic. And then all these negative thoughts start flooding in. And this is, the Ilaj Ma'arifi Sloki, CBT, which is the most common type of therapy, is specifically for that type of thought pattern because it's so common.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral therapy. So anyway, like all these negative thoughts would come and it became so overwhelming that there were times I felt I couldn't control it and I got depressed. And that's kind of a taboo subject to talk about or to admit, not just here, but globally. And I realized that I needed to figure my way out of it on my own because, it's sort of the cliche life lessons of you have to love yourself, find yourself kind of thing, and no one's going to help you more than you can help yourself. And so it taught me, really living in Riyadh taught me to be strong and independent more than because I thought I'm a strong, independent woman, like moving around, traveling, but Riyadh taught me that more than anything.
I think everyone thinks they're strong until they move to another country.
Yeah. And I remember just being at a pretty low point before Ramadan and thinking Ramadan and Eid is so tough alone. And then I was like, and I think I was also at this point, I have to say, because I'm working full time and I'm going to school full time. So there's not a lot of time to relax, to go out with friends, to buffer that stress, the effects of the stress. And so when I noticed, anyway, basically, I just remember praying a lot and thinking, why am I not getting answers? Why am I not getting help? And I remember like this thought came to me that I learned growing up from like Nabi Isa, peace be upon him. I don't know the right words to say, but peace
be upon him.
Yeah. And I hope it's okay to say this because, this is like, he is considered a prophet, but he said that not everyone who cries out and says, God, God, like our Lord, Lord, will enter into heaven, but those that do the works of God, of those that basically help people and do good things. And when those words came to my mind, I realized I'm not doing that much to help people right now. And I want God to help me feel like I'm living happily or like in heaven type feeling. So I need to do something. And I thought, I shouldn't just sit here and feel like, oh, I'm alone in Ramadan. There's orphans out there that are alone, that they don't have families also. And why don't I go help them? I'm a psychologist now. I have something to offer to help people. And once I had that thought, things got better and people came into my life and I made friends and I was so busy during Ramadan and Eid and I felt happy. And I learned finally to fight those negative thoughts and to be strong and be happy no matter what. Alhamdulillah ala kul hal. So yeah, I think I've heard from a lot of people who are kind of in that age range where I went through that they went through something similar. And so I think it's just one of the steps of life that we all have to go through hard things and learn. We become stronger, inshallah, because of them.
And you have, right?
I think so.
That experience has made you a more resilient person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like Riyadh, I was saying it's special. And I think that's part of what makes it special is the history, surviving in the desert. It's not easy, right? You have to be strong.
It's not for everyone.
And of course, we're not like the people that lived in the desert 1,000 years ago. They're probably much stronger than we are because we have all these modern luxuries. But there is something to be said still for I think that surviving difficult times. Yeah.
Definitely. What's the quote, the saying? You'll never find out how strong you are until being strong is your only option.
Yeah.
In Riyadh, you wanted to make it work. Maybe you wanted to prove it to yourself. Maybe you wanted to prove it to your family. It was your only option to be strong. And that's when you found out how strong you were. Yeah.
And I think wanting to come here for so long and then it being so difficult, I was like, I worked so hard for this. I'm not giving up on this, because I was like, I love it so much and I know how much I love it and why. So I'm not giving up, even though it's hard. And so you have to have that kind of commitment to succeed at difficult things, I think. Relationships, jobs, anything, like your dreams in life.
What came first, the depression or the study of psychology?
The study of psychology. I knew from a young age, I think when I was 8 years old, I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. It took me a long time to finally do it, but I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And now it feels so good. Like that's part of my identity to say like, I'm a psychologist. And like, oh, I love that because I love psychology so much.
It's an epic profession.
I think everyone really should follow their heart and what they feel they should do. And that whatever you feel you should do, that's going to be epic for you. And for me, psychology is epic.
To know or to have empathy for how the human who you're interacting with functions and how their brain works is something that I think we need to all be empathetic about. And I've spoken to psychologists in my life, and I've spoken to those who aren't psychologists, and I feel that I can relate to psychologists because they understand me more, because they're more empathetic, they're more sympathetic, they get me, they understand how my brain works.
Interesting. I need to know who those psychologists are. I think that you can find good ones and bad ones, but it's very important. It's a huge part of life, and some people have a natural skill for it, others don't. I think I don't. I think I tend to more analyze people on details. Like I like to analyze people's handwriting, how they eat. And because I like to just have like an idea of a map of how their brain works.
How about how they can treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them?
100%. 100%.
That's what I look for.
Yeah. Because that's rare.
You are judged by how you treat the least among us.
Amen. Amen. And it's rare to find people like that.
Because it's so easy to be nice to someone who can hook you up.
Yeah. And I think for a long time, I had a hard time filtering who those people were. I think I still struggle with it because I just love people so much. But yeah.
That's why business lunches are important. Before you go into a deal with someone, see how they speak to the waiter.
I like that. That's a good test.
Yeah.
I think, I really believe that we're all connected. We're all created from God, right? And the way you treat someone, people talk about karma, but it's like that person is connected to you. So you really are, that's how you're treating yourself and your creator, because that's a creation from your creator. And so that really, we're going to be accountable for that, and it's going to come back to us. So it's very important. And I have to remind myself like every day to be respectful, even if I'm frustrated from traffic, that like that person in that car, that's a person that has feelings and is just as important as I am.
Some days it's harder than others when dealing with road rage, especially in Saudi.
Because there's so many factors. Yeah, I mean, I love to study this. How actually I did a video on this once about something called the urban trance, where when you're in a busy city, like they did these studies about New York, so you might tell the different sort of vibes from a chilled out beach town versus a New York City or a place that's very crowded, because you have all of the stimulation around you from visual, traffic, sound. It puts a sort of stress on your brain, and your brain starts to filter out information that's not as important. And studies show that we lose a little bit of our empathy in our brain because of that. And so, yeah, it does become tough. And I think it's important for us to be aware of how external factors influence us. And we know, like as a thermometer, we know when we're reaching a certain point that we need to do some self-care. Like I need to step back, I need to relax, I need to go out with my friends, whatever it is that you do to bring yourself back down so that it is easier for you to us. I mean, in general, all of us. Yeah.
It's anxiety inducing.
That's something that I think I learned with age. Because you asked me if I feel I'm happier with age. Yeah, I think from the experience and learning that, especially.
I think the good thing about age is that you are able to filter what's worth getting worked up on and what isn't.
Yeah. What can you give me an example?
Yeah. For example, if my son is throwing a tantrum, I don't think I've learned more about patience than anyone, more than my son. I would react to his tantrum. Now I don't react, and my no reaction makes him calm down. Road rage. I told myself I will never engage with anyone on the road. Again, I made this promise to myself a year ago. And really, if something isn't going to bother you in an hour, then there's no point getting worked up about it right now.
Yeah. Stress
kills.
It really does. And when you have that initial stress or anger reaction, it affects your body for hours and hours. It takes hours to come down from that. But you're right. I think that having kids, having families, that brings out the best. It should. It's supposed to technically bring out the best part of us, because you learn so much patience. You have to learn empathy to make things work. So that's cool that you learned that from your son.
And honestly, like it's nothing. Like your son throwing a tantrum, he's supposed to, his prefrontal cortex isn't developed the way it should be.
Prefrontal cortex. Exactly.
It's not there, so it's not his. Like my parents had to deal with me when I was throwing a tantrum at 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
But I also know what stress is. I know what it's like to work under a narcissistic psychopath. I've seen stress, so nothing since then will make me feel that anything is worth getting worked up on. Mm-hmm. I've dealt with panic attacks because of the narcissistic psychopath. Mm-hmm. I've dealt with anxieties. I've dealt with all that. And I told myself, I never want to go back to that. Like nothing is worth that kind of taxation on my mental health.
Yeah. But I think that it's hard for people to learn. So it sounds like you know about prefrontal cortex. You know how these external factors are influencing you. And it's really important for us to learn about ourselves to be able to get to that point. I don't have kids, but I have a bird. And they can be so frustrating sometimes because, you want them to like love you and play with you as a puppy would, but they're very sensitive creatures and they take a lot of patience. And I realized that with trying to train a bird, that it's just reacting to fear. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we do in our lives, how we react to things, our behavior is really, we want to avoid fear and feel comfortable. And once you can put yourself like in your son's shoes, that he just wants to avoid bad feelings, mm-hmm. And you can have that empathy, then it's so much easier to know how to respond to him, the affective empathy, knowing how to respond. So that's amazing.
That's what it's all about. Yes. Being empathetic, putting yourself in that person's shoes. If we did more of that, the world would be a much better place.
And that's why you asked me why I want to come on the show. Why am I being a psychologist?
Yeah, are you going to answer that question?
I said I want the world to be a better place, and not that we all have to do our part. We all have a responsibility in that. So that's why, I see a lot of good in the collectivist culture where people take the responsibility to help others, to have empathy for others. And I hope that we continue that, because as with the globalizing world, it's social media, it's tough to maintain that, I think.
Truly.
And plus with this, how cities are developing, I love some of the projects that are happening, like the Line or these sustainable initiatives, because those initiatives will make people happier. And it's better psychologically to have cities like that where we avoid those external stressors, that like the traffic and things like that.
Yeah. Carless cities, greener cities.
Yeah. Yes, it has an impact on society.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
ملحمة من النكهات الجديدة في طريقها لك. مستعد؟ وصلت نكهة ليز الجديدة، المانجو والتوابل الحارة. امسح كود الQR على العبوة، حمل تطبيق جوي واكسب جوائز كثيرة. المسلسلات يبيلها نكهات جديدة.
Worst advice you've ever gotten besides moving here?
Yeah, the worst advice I ever got was don't go to Saudi because it will ruin your life.
Okay, next question. Happy to see that if anything, it actually bolstered your life.
Oh, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Would you take any interest in marrying a Saudi?
So I think in marriage, it's important. I haven't. So, okay. I think it's important to have love. And I know some people would disagree with that, but I think it's very important.
Of course.
And I think it's also important to have the same vision for your future. And as you know, I want to stay in Saudi. So I've had opportunities to get married before where that didn't align. And I said, I'm going to stay in Saudi. So if that's not your goal, ma'a salama. And then I did almost marry a Saudi guy, but it didn't work out because, you know, it's difficult. Different cultures, family values, and
It's polar opposites in the day in terms of culture and
yeah. And I think there's always there's always those old stories you hear about, oh, well, if you get divorced, what's going to happen with the kids? And so I remember always saying, like, whatever happens, I'm staying in Saudi. So I'm not going anywhere. So of course, as I mentioned, I do believe that families is very important. It's part of that. And people are moving away from that because we get people in younger generations are scared of responsibility and commitment because it is difficult. But I think that it brings out the higher self, like you said, raising your son. You learned patience. And I want to be the best person that I can be. So of course I want to get married. Of course I want to have kids. But it hasn't happened yet. And I think for two reasons. Well, many reasons. I think that there's musir, there's fate, and that big things like that are written for us. And I hope it's okay. This is kind of shifting direction a little bit, but it was making me think about linguistics. And my friend recently told me that she went to someone who, I don't know, reads energy or something like this, and said that she had a curse. And I've heard a lot of people who, you know, people talk about things like this, sihr and curses. And someone once told me that I had a curse. And sometimes people say, like, no, this is nonsense.
that you've been cursed.
Yeah, like with sihr or something like this. And people say, like, this is nonsense. But then I hear other people say, no, I believe it. And I believe in ruqya. And I've done ruqya. And I think it's amazing because I believe in this, like, energy.
Is that Reiki?
No, ruqya.
What's that?
Like,
Ruqya?
ruqya. Like,
That's not Reiki?
No. Reiki is totally different. Ruqya is Islam. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Ruqya, where you say like certain verses of the Quran, and maybe you like say it in the water, and then you put the water on you, or you like blow on
I
yourself.
hope the joke's not on me. Maybe you're saying it right and I don't know it.
Ruqya.
Well, we'll
Anyway, but okay.
we'll find out in the comment section.
So this is an Islamic thing.
Okay.
And so I hear people believe in this stuff. And I thought to myself, I realized one day, like, that these negative spiraling thoughts that I was having, and I overcame them through learning about therapy, through serving and helping people, and through learning to be stronger in different ways. Yeah. And I realized, like, this term for a curse, that's a word. That's a linguistic interpretation. But I thought, yeah, like, I have been living my life under the influence of those negative thoughts for years. And that is kind of a curse. So that's not like a pseudo, like we think of curses like, oh, that's, I don't know, baloney. I can't think of the right word like that.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm like, wait.
Almost like something that is not believable or happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of how
Fiction.
I love to learn about
Fiction.
spirituality and finding my relationship with God, because I think there's such a linguistic aspect to how when we learn about religion, we learn about things, we think of it from a linguistic way.
Yeah.
But when you have different languages, you start to see things in different ways. Like in Islam, we say that we're made of plain and that jinn are made of nar. But this is not plain, that in the way that we use the word plain, but it's a like plain. It's a like amthal, I guess. And I think of the same thing when we think like, oh, this is like not true, because there's no science. We don't make the connection of the scientific backing. But when you think about it from a different language, I'm like, yeah, I guess those negative thoughts were kind of a curse. So maybe that was right. And
could be, that's believable.
Yeah, exactly. So I tend to think of things like in this, I love to connect things. I don't know if I'm even making sense.
You are.
My brain processes things in a different way. But yeah, so I think you asked me about if I wanted to get married, and of course I do. And I think that in the past, the negative thoughts were preventing me from it. And now I've overcome that. And so I'm like, I look at my past with such gratitude of like, I used to look at it as, oh, I can't believe I did that. Why did I do that? Because I'm such a perfectionist. And now I look at it as this beautiful journey where I learned, and I'm so excited for the future. I'm so excited to go forward. And I think it was Carl Jung, who's a psychologist, that said, life truly begins when you turn 40. Everything before that is just practice or training. And
is that right?
Yeah. Yes. And that's what I learned finally.
Truer words never spoken.
Yes. And I'm not 40 yet. Knock on wood. I don't want to be. No, I do want to get to that point, of course. Anyway, I'm not 40 yet, but I do feel like I'm in training, and I feel like I'm getting to something. Like, for example, I don't know why I came to Saudi yet. Maybe it'll become clear when I'm 40, maybe not. But I feel like I want to start a business, but not yet. Maybe when I'm 40. But I feel like everything, I just feels guided. You know, when you're tuned into your intuition, you have these sort of signs or feelings, inspiration, and I feel so guided, and I feel like it's leading somewhere. So
I'll also push back a little bit on that and say something that really spoke to me, and it's one of Kobe Bryant's most famous quotes, where he says that we have less time than we think. Yeah. So when you say, when I get to 40, I mean, I love the patience. No, but I love your patience at all in good time. But there's also the element of, and not about you not reaching 40. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to see someone steal the idea that you have because you were slow to move on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you're right.
Hey, Heidi, one of my biggest wishes, everything happened for a reason, but I wish I started the podcast 2 years before.
I wish so much.
Do you know what I mean? It took COVID for me to start it. That's
the thing. I felt like that my whole life. I grew up in a culture that was literally said, if you don't get married by the time you're 25, you're a menace to society. And that's a direct quote that they used to tell us. And I used to be so scared of turning 30. But my 30s, I was like, wow, this is so much better than my 20s. And I think then you get afraid of turning 40. And you realize like life maybe just begins at 40. And you shouldn't be afraid of that. And so I agree. I totally agree with you. But I used to think, oh, if only I was a little bit younger, I'm too old to do this. If I had just started this 2 years ago, 5 years ago, if only I had, and that ma yanfa. What is the benefit of thinking like that? Okay.
You trip me out when you speak Arabic.
It's better. Like, I learned to let go of those feelings and say, no, the time is now. And you're right. Don't postpone your dreams. Don't ever postpone your dreams. But you also have to prioritize, because I have so many dreams, and then I have to prioritize. Okay, this is what I'm doing right now. This feels right. And inshallah, this is what I'll do next.
جديد. اكسر الروتين مع أطباقنا الجديدة من بيتزا هات جدة. بيتزا هات جدة، ذوق طعم الثقة معنا.
one of my favorite questions out there. Are you holding on to anything that's holding you back?
Yes, I think everyone is holding on to things and we don't realize it. And it's up to us to discover what it is. I think I'm still discovering it. And I think I've let go of many things, but I still have insecurities that I'm holding on to. I think that I tend to hold on. I feel that I love people a lot in my life that maybe have hurt me or have come and gone, and I tend to hold on to that. But I think that when we think about letting go of things, we think it should be like you cut a cord and it's done and it's gone. But I think it's more like a wave. Like the ocean is sometimes calm and sometimes waves come back. And so for me, it comes and goes. But I realized that to let go of someone, first of all, I realized when you purely love someone, you let go and you just let go so there's something else internally that has to be to let go of. That's, maybe I haven't figured that out yet, but yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It kind of does and doesn't. When you said that you feel like you love people a lot, are you trying to hit on the element of it not being reciprocated back to you?
Yeah. Or you were talking about people that maybe just treat you a certain way because they want something from you.
Yeah. Transactional.
Yeah. And as I mentioned that I wasn't always good at filtering who those people are or are not. And I tend to assume the best in people. And then when people show their true colors, it's hurtful sometimes. I had to learn how to let go more quickly from that. Yeah. And I think that it really just comes down to when you do let go and it's all internal, because when you really love someone, it's easy to let them go. You just want the best for them and you don't care. You don't have any more hurt. And when you can get to that point with yourself, that means you've let go of your own insecurities and then you can move forward. So I think that's what it is. And I'm still learning to do that. It's a process. It's a lifelong process. Like, you asked me if I wanted to marry Saudi and I kind of skirted around that question. Of course I do. And I realize I have to let go of my past to move forward with my future goals. And not just in that aspect, also in my career or in my dream to start a business. Anything. I have to let go of my past insecurities and mistakes and see them as learning experiences. And I think I'm still in the process of doing that.
We learn the best from hard times. And it was something that I found myself saying on Gary's episode. What?
I saw that episode. I was telling you the episodes I saw. That was one of them. It was amazing.
It didn't air yet.
Oh, it didn't?
Gary.
I thought you were talking about the Daria guy. I'm sorry.
Jerry.
That's similar.
Yeah, very, very similar.
G and J.
Yeah, no, Jerry's a legend. Jerry is an absolute legend. We were talking about how I asked him, is suffering necessary for existence? And he went on to answer how, we need to go through hard times because that's where we grow. And then I said, thank you actually for saying that, because my worst heartbreak ever was at 18 years old. And that really hurt. And I grew from that. And 10 years of toxicity in the corporate world was hell. And I grew from that. Mm-hmm. And falling out with my cousin a year and a half ago was very difficult, but I grew from that. But it was very, very difficult to go through that. And he was like, tell me more about your cousin. And he flipped it on me. He's like, how many years have you been friends with him? I said 38 years. He's like, see, I see that as you being very lucky to have someone in your life for 38 years.
That's true.
I was like, wow. He's like, when I left the Soviet Union, whatever, I left, we moved to the States, we didn't know anyone there. So anyway, it was like a psychological.
But I think we take for granted that we have the ability to learn from to turn them into positives, because it's not an easy skill. And I think that really comes from your parents and how you're raised, and so many, not everyone has that, because people go through hard times and they ruminate on these things and they turn it into negative beliefs and they struggle for so long. And I think that's where psychology and therapy and things come in that help people to just have that strength to turn it into positive, to let go, to say, to not regret. You were saying like you wish you had started 2 years earlier. That's something to let go of. That no, it happened at the right time, and I did the best I could. One thing I'm so grateful that I learned in life is that even if I mess up big time, God can make that khaira. Even if I had something that was supposed to happen and it didn't happen and I messed it up, God can make it khaira. And I truly believe that. So that really helped me to just let go and feel happier and hopeful for the future.
What makes you feel most alive?
Swimming in the ocean, being in nature in general. Yeah. And also being with friends, people that I care about. But I love being in nature so much.
Does things to the soul.
I will say also right now at work, I feel alive because I'm doing something I care about that's sort of psychology related. And when you find something, a project that you really can put your soul into and you care about it, I feel alive doing those things. And studying Arabic, speaking Arabic, I couldn't live without Arabic. When I am feeling down and then I go to a lecture at the university in Arabic, I feel like refreshed. You feel that energy come back. I feel that so much. Anything
missing, Heidi, today? Anything missing from your life?
I don't like to look at it as something missing because I think that the past, present, and future is all this process, and that whatever's meant for me will come. But of course I have to do my part and work towards my dreams. But yeah, I have goals that I haven't achieved yet, but I don't feel that I just try to be grateful for everything. I don't look at it as something's missing.
Would you regret anything if your life ended abruptly? Would you regret not doing something?
Yes. That actually happened to me almost. I was surfing in Hawaii and a very large wave came. And there was very large waves and I got swept out into the ocean. I couldn't swim. And the first thing that came to my mind was these unfinished goals. And the one that just popped in my head was I wrote a book and I haven't published it yet. And it's always on the back of my mind. And it's a book sort of about these life principles, following your intuition, kind of like The Alchemist, but different.
Been meaning to read that book.
Oh, it's really good. It's about following your intuition in spirituality, but I put it into like a novel, but it's in a novel form, and so that's what I did. And I started it 10 years ago, but times always change, and so I'm always updating, always working on it, and always too busy. And so that's something I feel if I were to, if something happened, that would be my first thought. But everything else, I'm like, okay, I did my best. Alhamdulillah, I did my best.
So you want to write a book one day?
I did write a book, and it needs to be edited and published. So I hope to do that. I hope to
do it. I know it's easier said than done, but
same with being a psychologist. It took me a long time to get back to that, but I'm finally doing it. It feels so refreshing. When you have those things at the back of your head, it feels so refreshing to finally do it. And that's what I talk about, living your intuition and tapping into understanding yourself and knowing what do I really want and why. Yeah. Most people don't even know what they want, really, when it comes down to it. Like, you might know about materialistic things, but what do you really want out of life? And when you can figure that out, things go forward quicker. So, yeah.
Do it. We have less time than we think.
Absolutely.
Live your life by that. I live my life by that. I live my life by that.
I try to, and I always remind myself, no soul knows what it will reap tomorrow. I consider myself to be a deeply spiritual person, and I feel like I have intuitions or inspirations kind of guiding me to see a blurry vision of what's next.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like, that could just be to teach me or to,
Yeah.
You never know. No soul knows what it will reap tomorrow.
Crazy world, crazy life. But it's also an amazing time to be alive. I think we're very lucky to be alive in this era. As chaotic as it is, there's also some really good things that are happening in the time that we're living.
Yeah.
The element of being able to explore the world, the technology at our fingertips, the life expectancy, up to 70, 80, 90 years. Did you know that 200, 300 years ago, the average expectancy was 40, 50 years old? So there's certainly some good things.
Yeah, but you also had, because people died very young and babies died very young, but you did have people living longer than that, you know.
But the average is up.
Yeah, of course. You're right. I heard someone talk about this before, where we see all these bad things happening in the world, but you look at these good things that are better than it's ever been in history, and really bad at the same time. And how do you reconcile with that? But you're right. You're right. We're very lucky and blessed, and very blessed to be in Saudi Arabia at this time as well.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for coming through, and thank you for calling it your home. And I'm happy to know that it exceeded your expectations. Of course, it's going to be tough. If I move to China or anywhere in the world that I don't speak the language, it's going to be tough for me. But you persevered and you were resilient. And today you call it your home very proudly, and to the point that you haven't been back in almost 3 years. So that tells me a lot about how happy you are here.
Yeah. Can I add something to that?
Go. Sure.
I think, as I said, and I'm curious if you've felt this in your journey to where you are now, in following that intuition and overcoming challenges, turning the negatives into positives. Like for me, and everyone asks why Saudi, and I didn't know. And I don't, like, people maybe ask you, why do you want to start a podcast, right? And you have to, as I said before, really know what you want to get there. Did you find that to be a struggle for you at all? Or you knew for a long time exactly what you wanted?
No, I knew nothing all of my life.
It was like a process.
It was, I had 3 weeks in COVID where we couldn't leave the house, and I watched an episode of Rogan, and I said, we don't have that guy in the region. Oh. So I called up my best friend and I bought equipment, and we shot a week later. And I was like, I kind of like this. And then I shot another episode with another very good friend of mine, and I'm like, I kind of like this. And then one step at a time. I never thought I'd get to 116 episodes.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But consistency and perseverance, and not listening to anyone who says no, or you can't, or be careful. There's, you can't do these things inside. Just shut up. Can't do these things inside. Like, I knew what my mission was, and I knew what I wanted to address, which is how much our country was misconstrued. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm just fortunate enough to be able to do this as a living today.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm trying to tie this all together. I'm going to say the story. You can use it or not. But you were talking about also how we have technology and how beneficial that is. But I do think we have this untapped intuition as human beings and connection with God, or this intuition that sometimes the distractions of the world can deter us from that. And I think it's really important that we take time to confront our emotions, to confront who we are, to ask ourselves what we want in life, and to follow that intuition, because that's how you get guided to your treasure in life. And I don't know why, but I always think about this story, and I've always wanted to tell this story, because when I was living in Hawaii, I mentioned how I surfed and almost died and how that impacted me. But there was one experience where I was hiking with these guys, and they were not very prepared. It was like a group anyways, it was a group of people. We were all hiking together. And I realized that we'd been hiking for a few hours, and we weren't at our halfway point, and the sun was going to go down in less than an hour.
Shit.
And at that time, because it was a long time ago, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have reception. I had a phone, but it had died already. And they didn't have also reception. And I said, guys, we have to go back now. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck out here. And they're like, no, not planning ahead, not thinking ahead. And I just had this impression, I need to go back now. And I said, I'm leaving you guys. Please come back. And they said, no. And I started running, just running and running for 30, 45 minutes, kept getting darker and darker until it was pitch black. And there's forest around. So there's no light. And there's cliffs, there's centipedes, these poisonous bugs in the ground. And when it became pitch black and I was standing there and I had no phone, I was like, what do I do? And I was scared, but so scared to the point that I was calm, because there's no benefit to panicking. And I thought, okay, I can just stand here for 12 hours until the sun comes up, for 10 hours, I don't know. And I started like singing. I stood there, I started singing songs. I started just praying and thinking like, I can't just stand here all night. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I could fall off the cliff. But I thought I could sit down and sleep. But then the images, those bugs, those big crawling centipedes came into my head. And I said, no, there's no way I'm going to lay down on the ground. And so I just prayed, and I felt this feeling saying, go this way. And I like inched my feet along the trail. And I could feel that I was on the trail still for a while. And then I felt just my feet in the bushes. And I thought, oh no. And I inched my way this way and that way, and I couldn't find my way. And then I started to really panic because I realized I'm not on the trail anymore. And I literally just prayed and started going in directions that felt right and didn't feel right for a long time.
Pitch black?
Pitch black, because there's trees all around. And I could see stars, but I didn't know how to navigate the stars.
But leaving the other two wasn't the best idea. You kind of want to stay with the group.
I just went with what I felt I should do.
Okay.
And eventually I got to an open area where there was some light, and I could, because there's less trees around, and I could clearly see two paths in front of me. And I felt so much relief. And I said, okay, this is a clear path. This one's not too clear. So I'm going to go down this path. And I was clearly on a trail, but I just had this feeling like, this is not right. Go back. And I was like, no, logically, I should keep going. And I did, but that feeling kept coming. That thought kept coming. No, go back. So finally, that feeling was so strong. I went back, and then I went the other way, and that led to the parking lot, to the car. And then I was able to get help for the other guys. And I sometimes think about like, how the heck did I do that? I don't even know now. But I take that as an analogy for life. We can't see what's going to happen tomorrow. Like you said, we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, or if we're going to be alive tomorrow. And so we're kind of living our lives like that, but we're distracting ourselves with our phones. We're distracting ourselves with staying busy to not confront our own souls. And when we do that, when we really confront ourselves, when we spend time in nature, when we meditate, we find our way. We connect with that intuition that guides us. And to me, that experience that I survived that has always been a foundational experience for me, that to trust God, that there is something that can guide us, that more than we realize. Truly. If we tap into it.
What a story. What a story. I love how you brought it back into how it is in life, where you don't know what road is going to take you where. And sometimes you just have to trust your gut.
Yeah, because as Steve Jobs, I love this quote from Steve Jobs, where he talked about, he kind of was drifting in this direction, that direction, and he studied calligraphy. And he said, you can't connect the dots going forward.
Yeah.
And so there's always a balance between logic and intuition, but I tend towards intuition. And that's why I'm here.
As we all should do.
That's what brought me here, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the story. Thanks for coming on board. And honestly, it's inspiring to hear somebody who comes from such a land far away and they call my country home. I really am happy to hear that it's everything that you wanted it to be and more. And I hope it continues to get better and better with time. And I'm so grateful that people are so welcoming and allowing of me to be here. And so thank you. Proud of my people. Thanks, Heidi. Thank you. All the best. You Cheers. Too. Thank you. All right.